Disclaimer: when doing any sort of electrical work, please make sure that you consult somebody who knows what they are doing, aka a licensed electrician. I am not one. Don't trust me. Do your own research. The only thing I'm going to show you is how I personally did it. What's going on, YouTube? In today's video, I'm going to show you how to wire up a third brake light off of your existing brake light. You can do this for any truck. This is specific to the Toyota Tacoma, but if you have something else that is not a Tacoma, that's okay. All you need to do is just find out where your brake light wire is, and then the process is essentially the same.
Step one, as always, disconnect that battery whenever you're doing any sort of electrical work.
All right, now we're going to come around to the back of the truck. I've already gone ahead and taken out the bolts that need to be removed. There's two 10mm bolts. One's right here, and one is right there. You remove those, and then all you have to do is very gently pull your taillight out. You want to pull it straight and away from the truck, just like that. Be super careful if you're like me and you have a bumper down there. Don't want to scratch this light. As she comes out, it's very easy. Be gentle. There it is. And there is our light. Awesome. Might be a good idea to get a cloth and put it under there too.
Okay, now that our light's out, let's take a look here just so you can understand what we're looking at. So in the very middle, that connector, that's your actual brake light, and that is the thing that we'll be tapping off of. The bottom one, that's your reverse light, corresponds to the clear over there. And the top light is the, I guess, the running light that would be on at night or something like that. So if we come over to this, mine's super dirty. There's a blue wire and there's a green wire that you can see in the center of your screen. The blue is your positive, that's what we're going to be tapping. The green is a ground. You don't have to hook up to that ground, although you definitely can. You can definitely just ground on another bolt on the vehicle. There's plenty to choose from back here if you don't want to splice two wires. So what I'm going to do is I have a couple connectors, and I'm actually going to add a disconnect, which I'll show you in just a second. And then once we do that, we'll cut into this and we'll tap off that wire, and I'll show you how it works. It's pretty easy. Alrighty, so there's the supplies I'm going to be using. I went to the hardware store and picked up some 18 gauge wire. That's definitely overkill. I don't need it to be that thick. That's the quick disconnect that I'm going to add, and then eventually electrical tape over, and then there's my electrical tape. So as you can see, the inside of your taillight gets really dirty. Even if you don't off-road, you don't, I don't know, for the longevity of it, I wouldn't put exposed wires in there. It's a good idea to just get some of that plastic conduit and wrap it all up in there. Also, one very important thing with electrical safety, you never want to go from a large wire to a smaller wire because you can melt the wire. You can go from a smaller wire to a large wire, which is why it's okay that I'm using 18 gauge. And this, I mean, God, I don't even know what that is. It's probably like 20 something. So I'm just going to trim this a little bit. It's a little long for what I need. Now, some camper shells will actually come with something like this, some sort of disconnect. Mine did not. This is the Alu-Cab, but I still love it anyway. And I'm just going to jam that in there. And it should, yep, feel it grab. And then we put the other side in there. Now what I'll also do, since this is for a vehicle and vehicles tend to bounce around, especially when you're off-roading, I'm going to throw some electrical tape around that just to keep it all nice and snug. This will also help keep a little bit of dirt out, just in case it somehow gets dirty. But there you go, pretty easy. And now I know these are secure and they're not going to go anywhere. Alrighty, now for my splice job, I'm going to use one of these. I don't know if this is actually too big. I use these in household applications. They're great. It's just a little pushing conductor connector. Makes life a lot easier. So I was going installing this, and I was like, you know what? I should actually do that 9-volt trick and make sure I'm working on the right side. I'm working on the wrong side. So what I started wiring up was actually for the backup lights. And I'll show you 9-volt onto the battery. And there's my brake light. I don't know if you can see it.
So for my personal installation, it looks like I have to be on the right side of the truck, but it's all the same. We'll just flip it around and I'll just go over there. Okay, so instead of drilling holes or anything like that, or trying to fish this under my bed and bending it, what I did was I actually took a screw out from the auxiliary box back here, whatever this is, a little storage compartment, and the electrical outlet, and I just fished those right through there. It's a perfect little spot to run this, and then you can actually pull them with your finger right out that hole. So that just made life a whole lot easier. Alrighty, so unfortunately I have to eat my words there. I ran out of those disconnect clips, so I ended up just shrink tubing and then electrical tape, putting it all together, but hey, that's fine. Okay, next step, we're gonna add some zip ties just so this doesn't catch on anything. If you have cargo, dogs, people, whatever back here, it's always a good practice with wires specifically, just to keep them from being a snag hazard, because you wouldn't want to rip this out while you're, God knows what, camping or whatever, traveling somewhere. And then you have yourself a real problem because you're stuck in the middle of the trail with a live wire. Now it's probably not going to do much, but you get some water in there, you short out a tail light, you blow a fuse, no one's all that happy. So always a good idea to do that. Okay, so I've actually gone ahead now and chosen a stud to mount on. There's 3 here that you can see, and it's just a 13 millimeter. So I have a 13 millimeter nut that's going to go on that. And then I have a ring connector. Ring connector will go right on it. Nut goes on top. Obviously, attach that first. Put that on there, attach it, and then we're grounded. I always like to leave myself just a little bit of slack, because you never know, it always, one way or another, somehow like disappears. It's like, we're good, we're good, we're good. You cut it, and then you just don't have enough. No worse feeling. Okay, so I've done that. Run this thing through here, then I'll crimp it real quick. These can sometimes be a pain. It's slippery. There we go. Now she's staying. Excellent. Now, since this is an area that's going to get wet, you're definitely going to want to cover it up with some electrical tape just to make sure that you don't have any sort of water intrusion into your ground, leading to something like a short, like we talked about when we were doing our wires coming out of the tailgate, or out of the bed, excuse me. There we go. It's not pretty. I'll add some more electrical tape to make it look nice. Okay, and now comes the fun part. Remember, it's the blue light, the blue wire that we're interested in. That is our positive lead. That is your power. So you can see I've gone ahead and peeled back some of this casing here. And what I'm going to do is cut into this, and then I am going to splice our power supply right into that, and then we will be good to go. Okay, so as you can see here, what I've done is added one of those little push connectors. Then I cut myself a tiny piece of wire, and I'm going to jump that right in the middle of this, add another one, and that's all going to be together. The reason why I'm using 2 of these is, and this thing is just to give me some slack in between, because otherwise the blue wouldn't have fit. You could also use a T-tap for this. That's totally cool to do. People have good success with those. I just didn't have one on me, and I wanted to get this thing done, so I'm going this route instead. All right, as you can see, both of these are on there, and what I'm going to do next is to cover all of this in electrical tape so that nothing's exposed. But before we do that, I want to test it, obviously, and make sure that everything works and nothing catches fire, because that's never a good time for anybody. Okay, so I have a nice 4x4 post sitting on my brake, and I just have this in accessory mode, and our brake light is working. So, call that mission accomplished. And what I'm going to do now is, like I said, just come back here, zip all this up, cover this in electrical tape, and very gently just kind of feed this wire back in, and then that's a wrap.